for the holidays. I'm pleased once again to join in welcoming Dr. Hall before the committee this morning. Today's report is more disappointing news for American workers and their families. Total non-farm payroll employment decreased by 125,000. And even after excluding the layoffs of 225,000 temporary census workers, private sector payroll job growth remains anemic at 83,000. At this slow pace, it will take much of the decade to return to normal employment levels. And while the employment rate fell to 9.5%, it fell for the wrong reasons. A precipitous drop of 652,000 workers in the labor force, or more importantly, out of the labor force. The number of discouraged and other marginally attached workers that have stopped actively seeking jobs rose to 2.6 million, an all-time series high. And 6.8 million American workers have remained unemployed for 6 months or longer. In January of last year, President Obama promised that the Democrats' economic program would restore confidence and jumpstart the U.S. economy. But last month, the Commerce Board's Consumer Confidence Index fell dramatically. Consumer confidence is flagging because families are frightened by dangerous deficits as far as the eye can see. And as for jump-starting the economy, two of the administration's top economists, Christina Romer and Jared Bernstein, predicted that if Congress were to pass the President's stimulus bill, the unemployment rate would remain below 8%, and non-farm payroll employment would increase to 137.6 million jobs by the fourth quarter of this year. Democrats in Congress did enact the American Recovery Investment Act last year, but this stimulus has fallen far short of both of these important projections. The growth of real GDP slowed by more than one-half, from 5.6% in the last quarter of 2009 to 2.7% in the first quarter of this year. A number of economic indicators flashed yellow in the second quarter, suggesting that economic growth may be sluggish for the remainder of this year and next. Americans don't see an economy in recovery. They see a White House seemingly incapable of protecting our beaches or getting people back to work. This anemic economic performance after the recession that began in December of 2007 is in sharp contrast to the robust economic growth that benefited American workers and their families after the 1981-1982 recession. The Obama recovery is one-third the recovery of the Reagan recovery, one-third the recovery from 1981 and the 1982 recession. President Reagan's economic policies were a tailwind, accelerating real economic growth. President Reagan pursued pro-growth policies, including large reductions in marginal tax rates, deregulation, and trade opening. Combined with the disinflationary monetary policies under Federal Reserve Chairman Paul Volcker and Alan Greenspan, Reagan laid the foundation for 2 decades of prosperity. In contrast, President Obama and congressional Democrats have pursued largely anti-growth policies that have hindered this recovery. Businesses are slow to hire because they fear higher taxes, job-killing regulation, and a dysfunctional Washington that is ideologically driven and increasingly anti-business. Instead of providing encouragement, President Obama and this Congress have given entrepreneurs reason to worry. Businesses aren't reluctant to hire because they're waiting to see what Washington will do for them. They're reluctant to hire because they're afraid of what Washington will do to them. Ominously, President Obama and congressional Democrats are insisting on reckless increases in federal spending both now and in the future. This puts the AAA reputation of the U.S. government into jeopardy for the first time since Secretary of Treasury Alexander Hamilton miraculously resurrected the finances of the United States after the Revolutionary War and put us on the road to becoming the world's economic superpower. The Congressional Budget Office projects that under the President's budget, federal spending will grow to 25.2% of GDP, far above its post-war average of 19.5%. A structural budget deficit in excess of 4% of GDP will persist through the next decade. Consequently, publicly held federal debt will rise to 90% of GDP by the end of fiscal year 2020. In the long-term budget outlook released just 2 days ago, the Congressional Budget Office projects that under the alternative fiscal scenario, which keeps current policies in place, Uncontrolled spending growth will cause the publicly held federal debt to explode to nearly 10 times America's GDP by the end of fiscal year 2084. President Obama and congressional Democrats are pursuing reckless fiscal policies that are clearly unsustainable. Unless their excessive spending, deficits, and debt accumulation are quickly reversed, the United States may experience a debt crisis similar to Greece. We are putting the future of our children and grandchildren in grave jeopardy. Unlike Greece, however, no one will be around to bail us out. Dr. Hall, I look forward to hearing your testimony.
The chair recognizes Congressman Cummings.